What's going on, everybody? Mike here, coming to you with another special edition of Fly Casual. This week, in our latest segment of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, I, your benevolent host, will give you my personal review of Todd Phillips' controversial new origin story for everyone's favorite psychopath, the Joker. Suit up and strap in. It's time once again to Fly Casual.
Let's get ready to wrinkle!
Todd Phillips' controversial and highly anticipated film Joker is here and making a bang at the box office. The last couple of weeks leading up to the release of the film has included calls for additional security at movie theaters, mainstream media outlets stoking the flames of controversy with comparisons to a 2012 mass shooting, and outright calls to ban the film entirely. Some critics say the film glorifies violence and so-called toxic masculinity. As of this writing, the film is expected to take in over $93 million domestically and $234 million worldwide its opening weekend on a $55 million budget. It will take the top spot for an October opening weekend previously held by Venom in 2018. Projections were in the $90 to $95 million range, so it has hit those targets. On Rotten Tomatoes, the critics score the film 69% certified fresh. Verified audience ratings are even higher at 91%. CinemaScore rates the film a B+, while IMDb audiences are rating it 9 out of 10. So despite all the controversy, the film is doing well according to all available metrics. So without spoilers, how would I describe the movie? Well, to start, it may be better to describe what this movie is not. It is not an action movie. It is not a superhero movie. It is not DCEU. And in fact, it will most likely be a one-off film. It is hard for me to imagine this continuity expanding beyond this movie. It's not impossible, I suppose, but unlikely. If they were to expand on this continuity, it would be hyper-realistic and not comic book fantastical at all. So what is this movie? It is a dark drama exploring deep mental illness with underpinnings of social unrest that artfully critique various factions without choosing a side. Makes you care about a tragic figure that does horrible things. You go in wanting to see the birth of a classic criminal you think you know, but are introduced to him in an unexpected way, and it makes you uncomfortable. It should also be noted that this movie is not for children or the faint of heart. Although the violence is somewhat contained, surprisingly so given media coverage, the movie is slow-paced and very intense. So to conclude the spoiler-free review of the movie, I highly recommend it. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I will definitely see it again in theaters. My only warning is to know in advance that if you are seeking a shoot-'em-up, modern-day superhero, action-packed thrill ride, this isn't the film for you. Be prepared to be challenged on some level. Now, let's get to the nitty-gritty. Spoilers are ahead. The Good. Reimagining the genesis of an iconic character can be tricky to pull off. We've had the calculated and revenge-motivated story of Jack Nicholson's Joker. We had the demented and anarchy-seeking mayhem of Heath Ledger's Joker. Todd Phillips may seem an odd choice to reinvent the supervillain given his resume of raunchy comedies like Old School and The Hangover, but he and co-writer Scott Silver, who worked on The Fighter in 2010 and 8 Mile in 2002, pulled it off in spectacular fashion, with talented method actor Joaquin Phoenix filling the role. Going into the movie, I was skeptical of Joaquin Phoenix. At the time the movie was announced, it seemed an odd choice. Jared Leto had just portrayed Joker in The Suicide Squad in 2016. Warner Brothers was trying desperately to piece together their DCEU continuity. I had trouble understanding how this piece fit into that puzzle. Once it was clear, though, that this was a one-off, I think I was able to take it for what it was and go in with no expectations. The character of Arthur Fleck is an interesting take on the Joker. We've always been told that the Joker was a murderous psychopath. But instead of reaching that status via thirst for revenge, Todd Phillips takes us into the mind of a mentally ill man. Arthur Fleck is compelling because of his struggle for acceptance, because of his struggle with mental illness, because of the lies he has been told his entire life by the person closest to him. It's easy to hate a bad guy who does evil things for seemingly no reason. It's harder to hate a bad guy, though, that is sympathetic, whose life is one negative event after another over and over. I love that the audience is forced to consider the harsh backstory that leads to the villain. Fleck's interaction with the Zazie Beetz character, Sophie, a single mother who lives in the same building, demonstrates perfectly his struggle for acceptance. Fleck and Sophie at one point ride the same elevator together, during which they have a brief interaction. Fleck is obviously attracted to her, perhaps less so physically and more so because she actually takes a moment to interact with him, attention he doesn't normally get. Soon, Fleck imagines in his mind a developing relationship with this woman. Even though you're sure she really isn't in a relationship with him, the filmmakers still make you question that once or twice. Fleck's turning point is also well done. The scene takes place on a subway car at night. 3 men, who we find out later are Wayne Enterprises employees on the train, start badgering a nearby woman. Fleck sees this and starts having one of his laughing fits, a manifestation of his mental illness. The men turn their attention to him and soon start beating him relentlessly. In the fracas, Fleck pulls a gun that was given to him and shoots one of his attackers, and then another. What starts as a man defending himself turns into a man hunting his attackers. He has officially crossed the line at this point. Unknown to Fleck initially, the killing of the white-collar attackers on the subway triggers a counterculture movement. Demonstrations and riots begin to break out in Gotham. As Fleck continues his transformation, he is somewhat oblivious to the movement he has started. He claims a couple of times that in the lead-up to the appearance on the Murray Franklin show, he is not political and has no opinion on the riots. However, his admission of guilt on the show and subsequent execution of the host on live television cements his place in the hearts of the rioters. The Joker is born. My favorite scene in the film is when the 2 police officers are chasing Fleck and the rioters recognize him and start attacking his pursuers. At one point, Fleck is knocked out. The rioters lift Joker's unconscious body over their heads to lead him to safety. It was sort of a twisted homage to the Tobey Maguire train scene in Spider-Man 2, where the crowd lifts him over their heads and carry him to the back of the train car, where they stare at and admire their hero. The fact that Thomas Wayne isn't perfect was a welcome change of pace as well. In most incarnations, he is a perfect human and philanthropist. In this film, he is flawed. In fact, most of the people portrayed in the film are flawed. From the upper class to the people that ignore or exacerbate Fleck's mental illness to the rioters. I think the filmmakers do a good job of pointing fingers at everyone without overtly taking a side. To me, that is good art. The cinematography and score work perfectly in tandem to set the tone of the film. The filmmakers really go out of their way, in my opinion, to avoid the look and feel of past films taking place in the mythical Gotham City. Everything has sort of a matte look and feel to it. Set in the 1980s urban America, they kind of go for a softer, less saturated analog look you get from an old boob tube TV, getting its signal from the old bunny ear antennas used to pick up local channels in the early 80s, before the proliferation of cable TV. The score, written by Icelandic musician and composer Hildur Guðnadóttir, is so different than anything else I've heard. It is melancholy, yet optimistic in a strange way. You can hear a hopeful melody trying to break free, but failing to do so from the droning prison of the bass notes. Much like Arthur Fleck trying to make his way in the world, but being hindered by his mental illness. It fits the tone of the film perfectly. The bad. The only real critique I have of the movie is that it will be a one-off. It's hard for me to imagine a sequel to this or making more films in this continuity. The setting is hyper-real and doesn't make much room for interaction with DC superheroes with more extraordinary powers like Superman or Wonder Woman. If they were to pursue more movies, they would have to be in the vein of Nolan, not Snyder, which may be preferable, I suppose, to some people. I guess the bad for me is the DCEU itself. It's been mishandled so dramatically that they are seemingly abandoning it entirely. I know we are supposed to be getting another Wonder Woman movie and supposedly a Flash movie, but when was the last time we heard anything about those films? The ugly. Media reaction and scaremongering were out of control, in my opinion. Comparisons to the 2012 shooting in Aurora, Colorado were unfounded, and I don't understand calls to ban the movie. Banning and thought policing are what other countries do. If you don't want to see a movie, stay home, but don't impede others if they want to see it. Probably the most egregious were those in entertainment media regarding the narrative that the film glorified violence and so-called toxic masculinity. The stark reality of this film was that the violence was pretty muted and not really graphic. It was intense to be sure, but it was not blood and guts. In fact, the violence was contained to 3 scenes in total. The shooting of the 3 men on the subway, the killing of the co-worker in the apartment, and Murray Franklin. That's it. There was no sex, no on-screen portrayal of violence against women. In fact, you could say the Joker actually saved the woman on the subway from being attacked by the 3 men. I don't even recall a lot of cursing, if any. Regardless of these smear attempts before it was released, the film is doing well at the box office and sparking conversation. To me, that's a win. The Lowdown. At the end of the day, I really like this film. It was a different take on the character from an unexplored angle. It made you feel sympathy for the villain in a way you didn't expect. The messaging questions all our motives without picking a side. The acting was brilliant. Phoenix gave it an award-winning performance in my estimation. I don't even know that there was a weak link in the entire cast. Although the movie is slow-paced, it is engaging and intense without being needlessly graphic. The Joker is the anti-hero we deserve. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. Now, it's time to hear from you. What do you think of the film? Was it what you expected? Was it better or worse than you expected? Was the reporting on the film leading up to its release on point or misleading? What are your thoughts and critiques? We'd love to hear from you. Please share in the comments below. And if you like what you hear and the content we provide, please give us a thumbs up and share this video. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and share with your friends. We hope you enjoyed this special edition of Fly Casual. If you haven't already, please subscribe and rate us at iTunes, Stitcher, and all your favorite podcast locations. It is important that you rate us so that we can reach more and more people. As always, be sure to check out the show notes at betterkind.com. There are also many ways to join in on the conversation. Follow us on Twitter at FlyCasual1138. Like us on Facebook, facebook.com/FlyCasualPodcast. We are also now on YouTube, so please take a moment right now to subscribe and ding the bell for updates. We are also now on Discord as well. Lots of opportunities to chime in. Reach out and say hi. Talk to you soon.